Hello, my deliciously twisted. Welcome back to Velvet Crypt for another horrifying Tuesday. Today, we're going to go back to the beginning. Oh, yes. We went way, way back into the archives. Before Dracula, before Nosferatu, before every sparkly, brooding, emotionally unavailable vampire who ever stared dramatically out of the window, there was Carmilla. Ooh. Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, first published in 1872. And if you think a vampire story from the Victorian era is going to be stuffy, slow, and completely disconnected from the horror we read today, oh, sweetheart, you might want to leave the lights on. Because Carmilla is one of those books where you have to remind yourself, this was written in 1872, and somehow it's still creepy.
Welcome to the Velvet Crypt.
Now, imagine you're a young woman living in an isolated castle in the middle of nowhere. Your mother is dead. Your father is basically your entire social life. You're surrounded by forests. The nearest town is miles away. And then one night, a mysterious carriage crashes nearby. Inside is a beautiful young woman who needs somewhere to stay. Your father says, "Sure, she can stay with us." And you say, "Absolutely." Because apparently nobody in Gothic literature has ever heard the phrase, maybe don't invite a mysterious stranger into your isolated home. But this isn't just any mysterious stranger. And from the moment she arrives, something feels wrong. Our story is told by Laura, a young woman living with her father in a secluded estate. Laura has lived a relatively sheltered life. She's curious, imaginative, and accustomed to the isolation of her home. But when Carmilla enters her life, everything changes. Carmilla is beautiful, charming, mysterious, and surprisingly, intensely interested in Laura. Like, intensely. This isn't exactly a vampire who lurks in the background for 300 pages, waiting for somebody to notice him. Oh no. Carmilla gets close. Very close. And Laura begins experiencing strange dreams, strange sensations, and an increasingly unsettling fascination with her new companion. And that's where the book starts getting really interesting. Because Carmilla isn't just about a monster attacking people. It's about attraction, obsession, fear, and the terrifying feeling of not being able to understand what is happening to you. Let's talk about the atmosphere because, oh my God. This book is basically Gothic horror concentrated into literary form. We have an isolated estate, dark forests, we have runes, old legends, mysterious illnesses, nighttime encounters, beautiful women behaving suspiciously. And we have dead bodies, ancient family histories, and a general feeling that absolutely nobody should be wandering around outside after sunset. It's delicious. And what's interesting is that Le Fanu doesn't need to constantly throw blood at you. The horror comes from anticipation. you know something is wrong. The characters know something is wrong, but nobody quite understands what is wrong. And that uncertainty creates a really effective sense of dread. Now, let's talk about Carmilla, because she is fascinating. Carmilla isn't your traditional mustache twirling villain. She's seductive. She's intelligent. She's affectionate. She's possessive. She's manipulative. And occasionally, she's absolutely terrifying. But what makes her such an interesting vampire is how much she blurs the line between affection and predation. Carmilla doesn't simply want to kill Laura. She wants connection. She wants possession. She wants intimacy. And that makes her much more disturbing. Because the danger isn't coming from some creature hiding in the woods. Oh, no, no, no. The danger is sitting beside Laura, talking to her, touching her, looking into her eyes, and telling her how much she loves her. That's a different kind of horror.
The Catacombs Archives.
Okay. I have to talk about this because, to be honest, I didn't know this book existed. So when I found it quite progressive in a way. Because you cannot talk about Carmilla without talking about the very obvious erotic and romantic undertones between Carmilla and Laura. For a story published in 1872, this is pretty damn bold. Carmilla's attraction to Laura isn't exactly subtle. She talks about love, desire, possession, and the intensity of her feelings toward Laura is dramatically different from the relationships Laura has with the other people around her. And that creates this fascinating tension because Laura is simultaneously attracted to Carmilla and terrified of her. And those two feelings aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, that's part of what makes the story so psychologically interesting. Carmilla represents something Laura doesn't fully understand, something exciting, something definitely forbidden, something dangerous. And because this is a gothic horror, of course that desire has teeth. Literally.
The Asylum.
Okay, let's talk about the psychology of Carmilla. And this is where Carmilla really grabbed my attention. Because underneath the vampire story is a story about fear of the unknown. Laura doesn't understand Carmilla. She doesn't understand what's happening to her. She doesn't understand her dreams. She doesn't understand why she feels so drawn toward this woman. And that certainly creates anxiety. The vampire becomes a physical manifestation of something Laura can't name: desire, fear, sexuality, death, loss of control. All of these things are wrapped together. And honestly, that's one reason vampire stories have survived for so long. A vampire isn't just a monster. A vampire can represent temptation, the thing you want even though you know you shouldn't, the person you know who is dangerous but can't stop thinking about it, the desire that feels thrilling right up until it becomes destructive. And Carmilla is basically the gothic embodiment of, I know this is a terrible idea, but now, okay, I need to be honest with you guys. This is a book from 1872. So, if you're coming into this expecting modern horror pacing, adjust your expectations. Carmilla is atmospheric. It's slow. It's descriptive. It takes its time. And there are moments where I wanted to grab Laura by the shoulders and say, "Girl, please connect the dots." But that's all part of the charm. You're getting Victorian Gothic storytelling. And honestly, I think reading it requires letting yourself slow down. Don't expect jump scare, blood, monster, the end. That's not what this is. This is more something is wrong. Something is really wrong. Why is this woman staring at me? Why is everyone sick? And then the dread slowly tightens around you. Think of it as Gothic horror foreplay. Here's the really cool thing about Carmilla. You probably know the vampire mythology that came after it, but Carmilla helped establish some of the ideas that would become incredibly important to vampire fiction. The seductive vampire. Yep. The beautiful vampire. The vampire who feeds on young women. The vampire who lives outside normal society. The vampire who is both terrifying and strangely alluring. And yes, Carmilla predates Bram Stoker's Dracula by more than 2 decades. Think about that. So when you're reading Dracula and thinking, wow, this vampire stuff is iconic, which I am one of them or was, remember that Carmilla was already out there haunting people. And honestly, she deserves her flowers. Or, maybe don't give her flowers. She might smell your blood. And then all hell will let loose and it's endgame for you. So, unless that's your thing, then go right ahead. What I loved most about reading Carmilla is that it doesn't rely entirely on explaining the monster. There's something mysterious about Carmilla, and I think that's important. The less we know, the more unsettling she becomes, because the human imagination is really good at filling in the blanks. If you show me the monster, I can look at it. I can understand it. I can decide what it can do. But if you tell me something is watching you, now I'm checking the damn closet. Or, in my case, checking behind the damn curtain. And that's what Gothic horror does so well. It gives you enough information to make your imagination do the rest. So, who would I recommend Carmilla to? Well, if you love Gothic horror, vampires, dark atmosphere, Victorian literature, forbidden romance, psychological horror, or stories where the monster is also strangely seductive, well, basically everything that I love and enjoy and imagine, you absolutely need to give this one a shot. But if you're someone who needs extremely fast pacing and modern prose, you might struggle with it. Same as you would with Dracula. And that's okay. Not every classic is going to work for every reader. But I personally think Carmilla is worth experiencing at least once. And to be honest, it's really not that big of a book. I mean, if you have time on the weekend, check it out. Because you could see the DNA of so much vampire fiction that came after it. My final thoughts? Well, so Carmilla, a beautiful vampire, an isolated castle, a young woman who doesn't know what she's gotten herself into, forbidden attraction, mysterious illness, Victorian repression, and enough Gothic atmosphere to make you want to light a candle and immediately regret turning off the overhead lights. This book is old, but it doesn't feel irrelevant. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can give it. Because more than 150 years later, we're still talking about Carmilla. We're still writing vampire stories. We're still exploring the relationship between desire and danger. And we're still fascinated by monsters who look beautiful enough to make us forget they're monsters. And maybe that's the real horror. Sometimes the thing that scares us the most isn't the thing we want to run away from. It's the thing we want to get closer to. So, what am I giving Carmilla? Can you guess? I'm actually going to give this a 4 out of 5. Why am I giving it a 4 out of 5? Well, I think my biggest thing is the fact that it's a woman. I mean, don't get me wrong, male vampires, chef's kiss, love it, sexy, gorgeous, dangerous, high marks. But the fact that this is an older book before them and being published in 1872, that's pretty damn impressive. I mean, get it, girl. Come on. Seduction, dangerous. Oh, aren't we all? But now I want to hear from you. Have you read Carmilla? Do you prefer Carmilla or Dracula? And what other classic horror novels do you think deserve a spot here on Horrifying Tuesdays? Drop your recommendations down below because you know I'm always looking for something new to ruin my sleep. And if you enjoy hanging out in the crypt today, like, subscribe, and toll the bell. Don't miss another descent into literary darkness. Until next time, my deliciously twisted, keep your doors locked, keep your windows closed. And if a beautiful stranger shows up at your castle in the middle of the night, maybe don't invite her in. I'll see you next time in the crypt. Good night.